Hi all, and we're back with the Chessable Masters. It's round 3 of Group B, and it's featuring Maxime Vachier Lagrave with the white pieces versus Fabiano Caruana with the black pieces. Now, after 2 rounds, it's Fabi who leads the group after his win against Nepo in round 2, which I showed in my previous video. And MVL, he drew both of his games against Giri and Rajabov. So the time control is 15 minutes with 10-second increment per move. So let's get started. Maxime opens with d4. We have d5 and c4, the queen's gambit. And we have c6, the Slav defense. We have knight to f3, knight to f6, queen to c2, takes and takes. We have bishop to f5, and now g3, e6, and bishop to g2. We have bishop to e7, castles, castles, and now the queen retreats to b3, maybe making possible ways for the knight to move. So queen to b6, challenging the queen, and now knight b to d2. We have rook to d8, and now knight to c4. Queen to a6, not wanting to trade the queens on b3. And now we have bishop to g5. Black plays knight to d7, and we have rook to e1. So far both black and white are completely developed, and it's a pretty even position. We have h6, bishop to f4, and now knight to b6. We have knight c to e5, not wanting to trade the knight, and now queen to a4, trying to maybe force a trade and maybe get a better position for his knight. Bishop to d2, bishop to e4 now, and now white just takes and plays b3, kicking the knight back. So we have bishop to a5 now, pinning this knight, and a nice rook lift, actually solving the pin and now attacking the bishop. If you take, the only thing you do is just freeing this rook and get a half open file. So it's not something you want to do. So after rook to d5, Maxime played bishop to c3, and now we got c5, challenging the pawn and the center. And we have e3, defending, and now rook back to d8. We have rook e to d1, and now knight b to d5, attacking the bishop. Bishop goes to a5, and now while you could play b6, there's nothing wrong with that. Fabi opts for rook to c8, just defending this pawn. We have rook to c1, and now still b6, kicking the bishop back. So since white has both of these files, the bishop retreats to e1, and now a5 by black, trying to make something work on the queen's side. We have these rooks eyeing this, so maybe it wants to push a4, maybe b5, but MVL plays a4, just cementing this into place for now. We have rook to c7, preparing to double up on the c file then. And now knight to c4, attacking this pawn. For now it's defended, but it kind of forces this knight to stay here, and it cannot move to b4 because the b6 pawn will be hanging. So black continues just with its plan and plays a rook to c8, and now takes on c5. We have takes on c5, and now knight to d4. So now we got a pretty strong knight pair in the center. Black has a few pieces of his own in the center, eyeing them. So it's still a really even position at this point. So we have the bishops goes off, the light square bishops go off, and now we have actually the bishop takes on d4, and this is a move while it's no problem to do such a move, but it opens up this file. On the other hand, this bishop defends the b6 pawn and this knight. So with taking here, you remove one of the defenders, and so this knight, if this ever gets kicked away, then this pawn is hanging. So you have to keep that in mind. So we have rook to d4 now, and now already if you push e4 and kick away the knight, well, currently it's not, but there is a threat. If you maybe move the rook here, then play e5, you can perhaps take this pawn. So you have knight back to d7, just defending this pawn. So this knight is free to move. And now e4. And well, you could maybe go here or here. Um, Fabi goes to f6, just attacking this pawn. Rook to d1, getting out of this possible pin. And now white is looking really strong. He has this beautiful open file. Um, Black, however, has an open file blocked by a knight, but the problem is this knight cannot is not easily kicked away because you cannot play a b5. So that is out of the question. So far the position for white, I would say, is a little bit better. So we have rook to b8, just trying to make something work on the queen side. Maybe push b5, and after takes and rook takes, you have your rook here. You can target b3. Maybe the a pawn can start walking. So that's the idea of black. Maxime plays f3, just defending this pawn, and so this rook is now free to move. We have king to h7, and now g4, trying to prepare an attack on the king side. We have e5 now, and this weakens this field, and also it cements this knight into place, because if you move this knight now, the e5 pawn is hanging. So it's kind of an interesting situation um, where you have this pawn, and this pawn is under attack by the white knight, and you have this knight defending them. So they're kind of like in impasse together. Um, so we have rook to d6. Now simply just putting more pressure on the b6 pawn. And now we have knight to c5 saying, okay, yeah, you can have one pawn, but then I will take the pawn on b3. So Maxime accepts, takes the pawn on e5, and Fabi takes a pawn on b3. So now maybe his rooks can get some activity on these files. With h4 by Maxime, continuing his attack on the king side. And now b5, Fabi does the same. We have g5 now, and now Fabi played knight to h5, and this actually allows for a little trick. Um, what he could have done is actually bring the knight back to e8 and just attack the rook. But in what Fabi played actually was knight to h5, and this allowed the knight of white to go to d7, attacking the rook. Now Fabi played rook to c8, and I just want to show you what happens if you go here. Yeah, um, just defending this pawn. So what happens then is we have knight to f8, king to g8, and now the rooks comes, and you cannot do anything about the discovered check. So the best way is actually just to grab this pawn, and then with this check, king moves, white picks up the exchange, and gets into a winning position, just like this. So the rook cannot move from the back row. So after knight to d7, Fabi played rook to c8, and now simply take the pawn on b5. Fabi pushes his now passed pawn, and Maxime does the same with b6. Now we have rook to b7, followed by bishop to b4. And now it's not looking all that pleasant for black, and black should really get some counterplay by maybe playing rook to c2 or something. But here Fabi played knight to f4, and after king to g3, he makes his knight into a better position. It's not doing much to h5, and on e6 at least it's having a bit more control of the board. Maxime says, okay, I'm gonna continue and push my king forward. And now Fabi played rook to c2, which is actually a mistake. Um, so um, just out of curiosity, you can try to find actually the correct way to defend, and also the following attack by MVL, which is just a beauty. You have to see this. It is amazing. Um, yeah, let this work in for you for a while. Why to play and win, and how would Black defend against this win? So Maxime plays here g6. Yes, an amazing move. And the thing is, if you capture maybe with the pawn, you lose the knight. So that is not an option. Yeah. So I just want to show you what happens if you go king to g8, and then you can capture here, takes, knight, king f6, and now rook to d5, just having a monstrous position. Maybe you want to push these pawns. Maybe you're threatening all kinds of nasty checks here. So it is a very good position for white. But what happened in the game actually is king to g6, and unfortunately for Fabi, there is now a mate threat in 4. So let's give you a couple of seconds, and perhaps you can find mate in 4 for white. Yeah. So it's knight to f8 with check, and you cannot take the knight because it's pinned. So you have to move. Well, only move is king to f6, and now e5 with check. King to e5 is only move. Rook to d5 with check, only moves back to g8, and rook to f5 is checkmate. So a fantastic win for MVL over Fabi. And you might wonder, well, was there any way to defend against this? So if we go back to this position, um, the key really is to stop this pawn from advancing to e5, making the checkmate possible. So what Fabi could have done here is play rook to c4. It's still a much better position for white, but at least he's not getting checkmated. Yeah. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the game. Let's put it in the final position. I thought this was just amazing. A checkmate on this level in such a way is against Fabi. I was really impressed by his play. So hopefully we can continue to see more of such games in the future of this tournament. So if you liked the video, please do give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next one.